Ray. Welcome to my channel. I hope you all are doing well. Please don't mind me. It is Ash Wednesday when I am recording this. I typically don't talk about religion on my channel, but yes, that is what is on my forehead, is Ash Wednesday related stuff. So just so you know, it's not dirt or anything. Anyways, today we are doing another part in a series I've been doing, which are questions in regarding to PTSD. We are on like part, I don't know, 400. Let me look. This is actually part 4, and I will link the other 3 parts in the description box down below, and any other videos that I think you should watch in regards to PTSD. So definitely check out the description box down below. So that is what we are doing today. If you like the content I'm creating, please subscribe, hit the bell notification so it is turned on, like, comment, and let's get into this. I always make a disclaimer on my awareness videos, especially PTSD ones, mental health ones like these, where I am answering questions. I am answering them from my own point of view, what I've gone through personally, and to the best of my ability. And I try to remind everybody that not everybody goes through the same situation. Everyone's PTSD is completely different. The situations that causes their PTSD is different. What will help them get through PTSD is completely different. All of it. But knowing that you're not alone, and also getting ideas, learning other people's ways of coping and getting through it that you may not have heard about is really awesome. So there's a lot that can come from somebody answering questions on how they handle their PTSD. And also at the same time, you could be experiencing a lot of the similar situations, though it's completely different circumstances. But I always make sure to let that be known. Let's get into these questions. If you see me looking down, I'm looking at my questions here. I'm not memorizing these questions. That's just not happening. So number 1 is, how long did it take you to talk about your PTSD without crying or voice breaking? So at the end of 2014, 9 years ago, and I was essayed. If you don't know what that is, it is on screen. It is still hard to talk about, but when it comes to crying or voice breaking, I've gotten through that portion of it, and it took a long time. After that happened to me, I pushed it away. I felt like the best way to get through it was to shove it down as far as I could go and forget about it. But that's not a way to cope. That's not good at all. And it is only going to make it harder and worse in the future when it does come back up, because at some point it will force you to face it. And that it did. And it was in the form of nightmares. That's how it came back to force me to face it. And I would wake up and I would just cry. And it took me going into therapy, and even in therapy, I wanted to avoid it. We would talk about it, but then it would be like, okay, we can only talk about it so much because then I can't handle it anymore. It honestly, it actually wasn't until about 2 years ago that I could talk about it without crying or my voice breaking. And that was because I learned the necessary skills, coping skills, to help me brace myself, brace the impact of the situation, to help me in a way heal so it's not so raw and painful. And between those skills and having therapy, it makes for an easier to slowly begin to talk about it without breaking down. But it will take time, and everybody's going to get to that point differently and at different times. I always tell you guys that the grief process, go through it. Let yourself go through it. But don't stay in each stage for too long, or else you're going to get stuck there. You're going to get lost there. And acceptance doesn't mean you have to be okay with it. And acceptance is only for you. It's not saying that you're okay with what that person did, that you are friends with that person now. You're doing it for you. And that took me a long time to figure out. And I'm going to make a dedicated video to that because there's a lot that kind of goes to unpack with that. So there are 5 types of PTSD. There is your normal stress response. There is acute stress disorder, which, while it's not the same as PTSD, if left untreated, it actually can turn into PTSD. It occurs in people who are exposed to things like life-threatening events, natural disasters, loss of a loved one, just stuff like that. The next one is uncomplicated PTSD, and this is linked to one major traumatic event. So this would be what I have, because my PTSD is linked to one major event that happened, and some of the symptoms include trauma reminders, nightmares, flashbacks of the events, irritability, mood changes, and changes in relationships. And it can be treated through therapy or medication or the combination of both, which therapy is so important. So the combination of both is your best option, if you ask me my opinion. The next one is complex PTSD, which the next question is actually what is CPTSD, complex PTSD, so I'm going to knock out that question as well. And it is the opposite of uncomplicated PTSD. So instead of being linked to just one event, it's linked to multiple events. It is common in abuse or DV cases, which that's on screen now if you don't know what that is. It's also in exposure to war or sudden loss. While it shares a lot of the same symptoms, the treatment for CPTSD is more intense than uncomplicated PTSD. Also, having this type of PTSD, you could be diagnosed with things like borderline personality disorder, antisocial personality disorder, or dissociative disorder, which I do have a video on borderline personality disorder because I was recently diagnosed with borderline, so I will leave that linked in the description box down below. Some exhibited behaviors one would experience is being impulsive, aggression, substance abuse, depression or panic, emotional issues, things along those lines. And lastly, comorbid PTSD. This is known as a blanketed term for co-occurring disorders. This is applied when somebody has one or more mental health concerns, often coupled with substance abuse. And this is extremely common. People suffering more than one condition at a time. And the problem is people trying to treat their PTSD on their own by using drugs and alcohol as a way to numb the pain, and that's only making things worse by not being properly given medication, evaluated by a psychiatrist, and having proper treatment done. So those are the stages. The next question is, a common misunderstanding is that we are overly dramatic. Can you touch on that? That is very true statement. People think people with PTSD are very overly dramatic, and I think it's because of misinformation or ignorant. They don't understand what that person is going through. They don't experience what that person is going through. Also, there are people out there that don't think mental health conditions are real, and it's just all in their heads, and they're being, like this person said, dramatic. And that is completely not true. There are scans that are done of the brain that can actually show these different mental health conditions, where they can actually see the gray area within the brain, where they can actually say this person has it, much like a sociopath. There is a part in the brain that they can see if you're a sociopath or not. This is very interesting, but you can actually see within a brain if somebody is dealing with it. And it's the same thing that goes with PTSD. You can look at one's brain and see if they are facing trauma. People that go through this are not overly dramatic. When I pass by something related to the person who did that to me, it's almost like involuntary reactions. It just comes on, it just happens. So it's not being over dramatic at all. Next is, how can I move past the situation that left you shook, the situation that gave you PTSD? Easy answer is always therapy. And a lot of people don't want to hear that because, well, therapy can be expensive. And also there's a stigma around therapy where people just don't want to go to it, and it's completely dumb. Honestly, it bothers me that people are so bothered by what other people think if they find out they go to therapy. So instead of doing something to help themselves, they're just going to suffer because of what other people will think. There's people out there that do that. It just drives me nuts. But you got to do what's best for you. And if there's a situation that you can't get past, this PTSD, you need to do something about it, or it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. There's also CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. There's also DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, which I do have some videos on DBT on my channel, which again will be linked in the description box down below. But you can find stuff on these two, CBT and DBT, online that will explain to you each skill within these therapies. And they are so incredible. DBT, I went to a DBT course. It was mandatory because of my actions. So in a way, I'm glad, because if I didn't go to this class, I never would have learned and been able to get to the point I'm at now. Or actually, I would have, but it would have taken me so much longer. And that's the thing. If you're not doing something about it, it's going to take you twice as long to get to your Look at this. Look at that. What is she doing over there? Silly. It'll take you twice as long to get to a place where you're not breaking down every 5 minutes if you're actively trying to help yourself. So look up CBT skills, look up DBT skills, read about it, and practice them. If you can't afford therapy, we have the internet, and it's full of so much information. Use it. Use it for more than just looking up movies and music and videos. Definitely important. Does PTSD experiences prevent you from being in certain work? Well, I'm disabled, so I don't work, unfortunately. I can't work, I should say. But it would, yes. I can't go too in depth with this because I don't want certain family members to watch this, and I want to protect them, you know? So this question is kind of hard for me to answer, and I could have opted for a different question, but I wanted to answer it because I think people don't realize that PTSD affects more than just your personal life. It also affects work life. So definitely the job that person did, because I couldn't face, even though it wouldn't be like him there, it would be the smell around you that puts you in a flashback, or the cars that would put you in the flashback. It'd be things like that. And so that would also go for like being in maintenance work, because you'd have to fix that type of car, or being a car washer, you know, things like that. Or, I mean, I wanted to work in the ER, and I still would if I had the chance, but it would be a little difficult because you could face that smell of whatever that person did, or the person dressed as how that person dressed, things like that. If you didn't know, all different type of jobs have certain smells. Anyways, so yeah, it can prevent you from being in certain work. Let me know if you have PTSD, if this question pertains to you. Is there any work that you can't do because of your PTSD? Do you get PTSD from surgery, disease or health related issues? Yes, you can, 100%. So like recently I was in the ER. I take IVs like a champ. You can poke me 1,000 times and it is not gonna bother me. I've been doing this since I was 10. Okay, so it's hard to hurt me when it comes to like hospital situations. But there was this nurse that went to put an IV in, and he went so deep that it hurt so bad. I think it pierced my muscle or something. I don't know, but it literally made me jerk and hurt so bad. And now like I get nervous because I don't want to feel that. And it spent like a good day or two hurting. That's how bad he pierced it. It was insane. And then also I got a form of PTSD from like if somebody moves fast around my abdomen, because I had an infection and the doctor and his team came in and just started not explaining themselves and just going ham sandwich getting the dressing off so they could like stop the infection, and I just didn't know what was happening and it was hurting and stuff like that. So now like you very much can get PTSD from that, and if surgeries go wrong that could scare you if you come across to have another surgery. You know, very much can have PTSD from health related issues. I mean, I sit here and think, okay, well, I get sick all the time, especially when I want to go and do something, like if we're gonna go on a trip or something. My body likes to be like, yeah, no. And so I wait. I'm always like, okay, when am I gonna get sick next? Type of situation. It's in a way a type of PTSD thing because I'm always getting sick. But is it possible to get PTSD from any situation where you experience strong stressors and unpleasant emotions? Yes, that is what PTSD is. PTSD is a response to situations, to strong, stressful situations or events that are so strong and imprinted on you to the point that it won't go away. So that is what PTSD is. And the last one is advice for those with undiagnosed PTSD and can't afford therapy. So undiagnosed, I'm trying not to offend anybody with this answer, but so undiagnosed PTSD and can't afford therapy, the first thing I would say is go to a psychiatrist and get diagnosed first, because until you get diagnosed with PTSD, the therapist can only do so much. They can only work with you so much, but you need both. There's only so much therapy can do for you. The best way to help PTSD is the combination of both medication and therapy. I mean, sure, some people can get through with just therapy or just medication, but if you really want to tackle it, it's the both. Also, call around. Some therapists will do a sliding scale, which means they will make rates for you. And also look up, like I said earlier about moving past the situation, that question. CBT and DBT. Look up these different skills under CBT and the skills under DBT. They will help give you these skills that can help you get through whatever symptoms you are experiencing when it comes to your PTSD. Though that's the best I could give you. Again, I like to make this reminder is that I'm not a psychiatrist, I am not a therapist, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a person who has PTSD, have had it for a long time, and I just like to do my best to help people. So with that, let me know your thoughts on these questions, and if you have any questions of your own or any response to any of these questions, I'd love to hear it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe and well, and I'll see you in the next one.